when it comes down to who is ultimately going to be offered a spot in the class, it's rarely a situation where an admission committee is sitting down and talking about who has the most number of A's or who has the most number of advanced placement courses under their belt or who has the strongest testing profile under their belt. It really tends to be what kind of impact has that student had in their particular community. What do the teachers have to say about this particular student? What does the guidance counselor at Campbell Hall or Harvard Westlake or whatever other high school they're applying from have to say about this particular candidate? A lot of times, and this is probably what's another element of frustration among students and parents, is that sometimes it comes down to the really intangible things, like who is really a nice person and what is the kind of work ethic that is behind this student, and just how interesting this student is in the contextual framework of who else is applying for that particular year. So all of the kind of intangible variables have a whole heck of a lot more influence than what the students and parents think come into play when we ultimately make decisions. I mean, obviously, the reality is the academic record is unequivocally the most important part of the evaluation process. And when I say academic record, I'm talking about standardized testing as well. But once you slice through the academic record and the standardized testing profile, to determine who ultimately gets a spot in the class has far more to do with the intangible or the non-tangible factors than the quantifiable factors like grade point average and class rank and standardized testing profile. We do the best that we can to kind of look for that how do I want to say this, the real character behind the student, or how sincere the student is representing themselves in the application process. But we also look for evidence from other individuals that weigh in on their behalf to determine whether or not the student really is a nice person, or whether or not the student really does have a strong work ethic, or is the student simply fulfilling check boxes, or is the student simply following a recipe for what they thought would enable them to get into college. And I think we look at other elements of the application, i.e. the letters of reference, the teacher evaluations, the guidance counselor recommendation, to really look for other pieces of evidence that will reinforce what the student is talking about. Probably one of the most overused buzzwords in this whole process is the idea of passion. And students sort of throw that word out recklessly nowadays. And when they apply for admission, the word passion will appear in multiple aspects of the application. And it's surprising how infrequently we'll discover an actual passion in the application, even though the word appears 1,000,001 different times in the application. I don't know about you, but when I think about what I was like when I was 17 years old, I don't know if I actually discovered a passion at 17. I mean, I think my passions developed and emerged as I got to college and after I graduated from college. But this idea that every 17-year-old in America has to have a passion for something in particular, I think is a little misguided, and I would much rather see a student that is much more open to different academic areas of interest, or open to the idea that they could be happy at lots of other different college universities, or open to the idea that they would thrive in different settings, small liberal arts colleges, major research universities, urban colleges, universities, rural, suburban. I tend to really be attracted to that candidate that is open to the idea of exploration, rather than the student that is trying to manufacture a passion. And there are students that, when they are 17, have a passion for something in particular. So I don't want to guide anyone down the path of believing that that should be avoided, but the idea that passion can be manufactured, I think, is something that we see on this end quite a bit.